The phone slipped out of her hand and hit the bathroom tiles before she even realized she'd dropped it. She stood there, barefoot, staring at the cracked screen, at the sent message confirmation glowing up at her like something clinical and irreversible, and the only sound in the apartment was the faucet she'd forgotten to turn off and the low hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen and her own breathing, which had gone very shallow very fast. She had sent it to the wrong brother. 43 pages. Transaction logs, shell company registrations, 2 photographs she'd spent 3 weeks obtaining through a court clerk who made her swear twice that she'd never reveal his name. The most sensitive document she had ever assembled in 9 years of investigative journalism. And she had sent it, without checking, without actually looking at the name on the screen, to the one person in the world most likely to be destroyed by it. Or to destroy her. She picked up the phone. Read the name in the sent folder again. The hell. Read it a third time. Her mind kept doing this thing where it refused to fully process what she was looking at, like a computer trying to open a file it wasn't built to read. The hell. Dante. Not Marcus. She had tapped the wrong contact, hit send, watched a green progress bar fill from left to right in approximately 4 seconds. And in those 4 seconds had handed a man named in 43 pages of financial crime evidence a complete copy of everything she had on him. She sat down on the edge of the bathtub. The faucet dripped. She had been awake for 31 hours. That's the part she kept coming back to, in the way you grab onto something small when the large thing is too enormous to hold. 31 hours. She'd been running on gas station coffee and a granola bar she'd found in her bag from sometime last week, and she'd been so focused on getting the file right, getting every citation verified, every source confirmed, that she hadn't slept and she hadn't eaten and apparently she hadn't read a name carefully before pressing a button that could not be unpressed. Her phone rang. Marcus. She answered it before the second ring. Did you send me something? His voice was already different. She'd known Marcus Hale for 6 months. Had met him 12 times in person. Had learned the specific register of his careful, controlled anxiety, the way he tightened when he was worried but tried not to show it. This was different. This was something underneath the control. Because I haven't received anything and I was expecting. I made a mistake, she said. Silence. What kind of mistake? She told him. She kept it short. File meant for you. Sent to Dante. 20 minutes ago. She said it the way you rip off a bandage, fast and without cushioning because there was no version of this that was going to feel okay regardless. The silence after that lasted long enough that she got up and turned off the faucet. Mara. His voice was very quiet now. The kind of quiet that isn't calm. The kind that's what calm looks like right before it breaks. You need to leave your apartment. I need you to hear me. Right now, tonight, you need to take whatever you can grab in the next 5 minutes and you need to go somewhere he won't be able to find you. Marcus, if we just... I know my brother, he said. Please. She was already moving. She packed the way people pack when they've finally understood the situation. No thought, just hands. Laptop. Charger. The hard drive in the desk drawer. Her press credentials, cash from the envelope she kept taped to the back of her bookshelf, one change of clothes, the small voice recorder she'd carried on every important story she'd ever done. She was out the door in 4 minutes. The parking garage across the street had a black Escalade on the 4th floor that she'd been noticing for 6 days. She'd told herself it was probably nothing. A resident. Somebody's contractor. The kind of ambient city paranoia you develop when you write about people who don't want to be written about and you learn to distinguish between actual threat and the general unease of the work. The Escalade was gone. She stood on the sidewalk and looked at the empty space where it had been, and the absence of it was somehow more frightening than its presence had ever been. She took the subway. Kept her bag between her feet and her back against the rear wall of the car and watched everyone who got on at every stop. An older man with grocery bags. 2 teenagers sharing earbuds. A woman in scrubs who fell asleep before the doors closed. None of them looked at her. She looked at all of them. She paid cash for a room at a hotel in the garment district under a name from an old press credential she'd never thrown away. Room 412. She locked the deadbolt, put the chain on, pulled the curtains so they overlapped in the middle, and sat on the bed with her laptop open and tried to think clearly. She was a journalist. Thinking clearly was the job. She'd done it in a village in the middle of a flood, filing copy on a satellite phone while water came through the windows. She'd done it sitting across from a man who'd embezzled $40 million from a children's hospital and watched her with complete stillness the entire interview, trying to figure out what she knew. She could do it now. Facts. Dante Hale had the file. He'd had it for approximately 45 minutes. The file named him as a recipient of payments routed through a shell company, Payments that formed the core of a money laundering structure built inside Aldrin Capital over 4 years. If those payments were real, Dante was either a willing participant or a cover. If they were fabricated, and it had crossed her mind, briefly, that all evidence could be fabricated by someone skilled enough, then she had handed an innocent man proof of crimes attached to his name. She didn't know which one was true. That was the problem. That had always been the slight uncertainty at the center of Marcus's file. The D. Hale payments were documented, verified through 3 independent sources, but she had never actually investigated Dante. She had looked him up, noted the background, filed it as context. She had trusted Marcus's framing because Marcus was her source and his information had checked out on every other point. She was thinking about this, about the specific architecture of what she trusted and why, when the hotel phone rang. She stared at it. Nobody knew she was here. She'd paid cash. She hadn't called anyone from this room. She picked it up. Ms. Voss. The voice was male, unhurried, almost conversational. Like someone calling to confirm a reservation. You sent me something by mistake. I think you already know that. Her thumb pressed hard into her palm. She stood up without meaning to, a full-body reflex, and found herself standing at the curtains with one hand pressing the fabric against the wall. Who gave you this number? She said. Not a question. You're registered under a different name, but your IP from this room's Wi-Fi matches the device you used to send the file. It's not complicated if you know what to look for. He wasn't showing off. He was explaining, the way you explain something to make a person understand that a particular form of running is no longer useful. I'm not going to hurt you. I need you to hear that clearly, and I need you to think about whether it's consistent with my behavior so far, because I could have sent someone to that room without calling first. She was thinking about it. She hated that she was thinking about it. What do you want? She said. I want you to understand that you're missing half the story. Pause. Probably more than half. You have financial motive to say that. Yes, he said. I do. That's fair. He said it without defensiveness, the way someone concedes a chess move. But motive to lie and actually lying are different things, and I think you know that, or you wouldn't be any good at your job. From what I've read of your work, you're very good at your job. She said nothing. Outside the curtain, the city made its sounds, a cab horn, distant voices, the particular white noise of a place that never fully goes quiet. My brother came to you, Dante said. He gave you a USB drive. He pointed you at specific accounts and told you what you'd find. Yes. Did he explain how he had access to those accounts? What his actual function at Aldrin is? She pulled up her notes on the laptop. Marcus Hale. Senior analyst. 7 years. Excellent reputation. 2 internal commendations. The profile of a man who sees something wrong and decides he can't stay quiet. The exact profile of the sources she'd spent 9 years building relationships with. He's an analyst, she said. He designed the system, Dante said. Every channel. Every shell. Every account, including the one with my name on it, which I discovered 8 months ago and have been trying to build a case around ever since without getting myself killed in the process. She sat back down on the bed. She was writing on her palm with her thumbnail because it was the only surface she had. The third name, Dante said. On the account structure. Below mine. Have you found it? She went through the file in her head. She'd spent 4 days building it. She knew every page. She hadn't found a third name. She'd found 2. There's a federal prosecutor in this district, Dante said, named William Carver. He's been receiving quarterly payments through a vehicle 2 layers below the D. Hale account for 3 years. His name doesn't appear anywhere in what Marcus gave you. I know because Marcus is the one who buried it. The room felt smaller than it had 30 seconds ago. She knew William Carver. Had quoted him in 2 stories. Had shaken his hand at a press event and thought, with the specific relief you feel when you find people worth believing in, that he was one of the ones doing it right. If you're fabricating this, she said. I have 317 pages, Dante said. And I've been verifying it for 8 months. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to come look. Something moved in the room behind her. A shift of air. The creak of weight on carpet. She turned around. There was a man in the chair by the window. She had not heard him come in. Had not heard the door. He was broad and still, wearing a gray jacket, his hands on his knees, his expression entirely neutral, the face of someone who has learned to take up as little emotional space as possible. He's there to make sure you're safe, Dante said through the phone. Not the opposite. I know how that sounds. She looked at the man. He did not move. Did not reach for anything. Did not speak. If this is a trap, she said carefully, It's the most expensive one I've ever walked into. I know, Dante said. That's genuinely the only thing I can offer you right now. She looked at the man in the chair. She looked at the curtains, the locked door, the chain she had put on herself and that he had somehow bypassed without making a sound. She thought about what Dante had said, if I wanted to silence you, why call first? She thought about it the way she thought about evidence. Stripped of emotion, just the logic. She picked up her bag. She followed the man in the gray jacket out of the room. They went down the service stairs, out a door she hadn't known was there, into an alley where a car sat with its lights off and the engine running. Nobody spoke. The city slid past the windows like scenery at the wrong speed, too fast to read, too slow to ignore. The car stopped at a storage facility in a part of the city that looked like it existed between two different eras, the new development not yet arrived, the old industry already gone. Corrugated walls, floodlights that buzzed in the cold, the smell of rust and old concrete. Dante Hale was standing outside Unit 34. She had built a picture of him from Marcus's descriptions and a handful of photographs. The descriptions were not exactly wrong, but they were shaped by the teller, the way all descriptions are. What Marcus had painted was someone volatile, opportunistic, the kind of person who turns family into a liability. What was standing in front of her was a man who looked like he hadn't slept in weeks and had made peace with that, who stood with his arms at his sides like someone who'd stopped having anything to prove. He looked at her the way you look at something you've been anticipating for a long time. Not surprised. Just confirmed. Thank you, he said. I didn't come because I trust you, she said. I know. That's actually fine. He pulled the unit door up. I just need you to read. Inside, a folding table, 2 laptops, a portable hard drive, 4 archive boxes with color-coded tabs. The tabs were the same system Marcus used for his files. She almost said something about that. She didn't. He turned the laptop toward her and stepped back. She sat down and started reading. He made coffee on a small electric burner. Set a cup beside her without asking. She drank it without looking up. An hour in, she understood that the documentation was real. Not because any single page was definitive, single pages are manageable, forgeable, explicable, but because 317 pages of coordinated fabrication would require a level of sustained institutional access that Dante Hale, a man with 2 expunged arrests and no corporate position, could not plausibly have. The emails had metadata. The transaction records had routing codes that she cross-referenced against public filings on her own laptop while he watched from across the table. The shell company registrations were filed in states with public records she could pull herself. She pulled them herself. They matched. At the bottom of the chain, behind 2 holding companies and a numbered account in the Caymans. William Carver. Quarterly. For 3 years. She closed the laptop. Her coffee was cold. She hadn't noticed it going cold. How did he put your name on the account? She said. Dante sat down across from her. He held his coffee cup with both hands the way people do when they need something to hold. Our father died 3 years ago. Left accounts in both our names, joint assets, estate stuff. Marcus suggested consolidating them through a financial vehicle he'd set up. Said it would simplify the estate process, save us money in probate. I trusted him. He looked at the cup. I signed things I read but didn't fully understand because I trusted him. By the time I figured out what I'd signed, my name was attached to 4 years of transactions I'd never authorized. He designed you as his exit, she said. If the structure ever came apart, yes. The money traces to D. Hale. D. Hale has a record, even expunged. D. Hale has no corporate position to protect him, no lawyers on retainer, no colleagues who'll stand up at a press conference and say this man is not capable of this. He's the perfect fall. He paused. And then he found out that a journalist with a real reputation was nosing around Aldrin, and he saw an opportunity to accelerate the timeline. Point her at the evidence. Let her find my name. Let the story break before I could get my own case built. He engineered the mistake, she said. My mistake. He knew if he created enough urgency I'd move fast. They're moving money tonight, Dante said. The exact words Marcus had used on the USB handoff. Did you wonder how he knew that, specifically? Why that night? She had not wondered. She had moved. She sat with that for a moment. 9 years of discipline and she had moved on 4 words from a man she'd vetted but never fully stress-tested because his information kept checking out and she had, somewhere along the way, let checking out become the same thing as trustworthy. I need to know one thing, she said. Fenn. Gregor Fenn. What's his role in this and where is he right now? Something shifted in Dante's face. Not much. A slight contraction around the eyes. Fenn is the CEO. He's the one who brought Marcus in to build the system. He doesn't know I exist or that I've been building this file. As far as I know He stopped. His phone was buzzing on the table. He looked at the screen. Looked at her. It's an associate of mine, he said. He's outside the building we've been using as a secondary location. Fenn's building. He picked up the phone and read the message. His face went very still. He's saying there are police vehicles there. The coffee burner clicked. The fluorescent light above them hummed. How long has your associate been watching Fenn's building, she said. Since yesterday. And there was nothing before tonight. Nothing. She thought about Marcus. About the coffee shop tomorrow morning, the meeting she'd mentally planned on the walk over here, the way she'd been constructing the confrontation in pieces. What to say, when to say it, what to hold back. She thought about the specific precision with which Marcus built things. The color-coded files. The exact words he'd chosen to give her. They're moving money tonight. 4 words perfectly weighted. He knows, she said. He knows you found me. Somehow he knows tonight is the night everything changes. And he needed to move before you could go public. She picked up her phone and called Marcus. He answered on the second ring. That was the tell. Not the first, which would be too eager, not the third or fourth, which would suggest hesitation. The second. Controlled. Warm without being obvious about it. Mara. Thank God. Are you okay? I've been trying. I'm fine, she said. I think I made a mistake with the file. You mentioned that. She could hear him settling into a particular register now, the older sibling register, the patient and reasonable one. Listen, we need to meet. I can give you some context that really changes. Tomorrow, she said. 10 a.m. Coffee shop on Meridian. I'll be there. And then, just slightly too warm, I'm really glad you're okay. She hung up. Looked at Dante across the folding table in the buzzing light of the storage unit. He'll bring someone, Dante said. I know. What's your plan? She looked at the 317 pages. At the boxes. At the man who had spent 8 months of his life building a case against his own brother in a storage unit with a coffee burner and a portable hard drive. I call my editor at 6 a.m., she said. I send her everything encrypted before I walk into that coffee shop. If anything goes wrong, the file is already out of my hands. And then I go have coffee with your brother. Alone. Alone. He looked at her for a long moment. The kind of look that isn't about trust. It's past trust into something more like recognition. He's very good, Dante said. I know, she said. I'm better. She did not sleep. She sat on the concrete floor with her back against the shelving units and her laptop open and spent the rest of the night going through every page again, not because she doubted it but because when you walk into a room with someone who is very good at making you doubt yourself, you need to know your material the way you know your own name. Automatic. Underneath thought. She called Patricia at 6:02 a.m. Patricia Chin, her editor, 30 years in the business, the person she called when a story was too large to be carried by one person. Patricia answered on the first ring because Patricia always answered on the first ring. How bad? Patricia said before Mara spoke a word. That was Patricia. That had always been Patricia. Federal prosecutor. Private equity CEO. 9 years of wire fraud. A source who's been running a frame on his own brother and tried to use me to land it. A silence that was not empty. Patricia thinking. How solid is the documentation? I've been verifying since midnight. It's solid. We need Daniel before anything goes out. Daniel was their attorney. The only lawyer Mara trusted without qualification and without caveat. And Mara. You're not going anywhere alone until I know what we're dealing with. I need to meet Marcus this morning. Then you're not going alone. I need him to think I'm alone. The silence this time had a different texture. She could hear Patricia weighing it. Call me the second you're out, Patricia said. And send me everything before you walk through the door. She sent the encrypted file at 9:47 a.m. Walked into the coffee shop on Meridian at 10:03. Marcus was already there. He had coffee for both of them. He half rose when she came through the door, hand out, and his face did the thing she'd seen it do a dozen times. The open, slightly relieved expression of someone glad to see you, glad you're safe. She had believed it every time before. She watched it now the way you watch something you recognize but are seeing from a new angle, and the new angle changed the shape of it entirely. She sat down. Did not take off her coat. He talked first the way she'd expected. Gave her 4 minutes of concern. About Dante, about the record, about the way people with certain histories construct counter-narratives to protect themselves. He was good. She let him be good. She asked small questions, the kind that keep a person talking, and watched him build the structure of the story he wanted her inside. At the 20-minute mark, she put her phone on the table between them, face up, screen open to an email. She watched him read it. Watched his eyes move across the text. Watched the face that had been warm and careful and slightly worried do something she had no word for, not collapse, not harden, but go still the way a performance goes still when the audience has seen through it. When there's no longer any reason to keep performing. The email was from Marcus to Gregor Fenn 4 years and 3 months ago. 14 words that were not ambiguous and could not be recontextualized. The Hail vehicle is ready. He has no idea. This gives us a minimum 18-month window before any exposure risk. Where did you get that? Marcus said. His voice was the same. That was the frightening part. Does it matter? He reached for her phone. She moved it off the table and into her coat pocket in one motion. There's more than that email, she said. A lot more. And it's already with my editor, my lawyer, and a second party I'm not going to name. So before you think about what the right next move is, she held his gaze. His eyes were completely steady. That was the frightening part too. Understand that every version of the next move has already been thought about. He sat back. He picked up his coffee. He took a sip with both hands around the cup, and she watched him do it, watched him by himself 30 seconds of apparently normal behavior, and she understood in that moment that she was not looking at someone who had panicked or cracked. She was looking at someone who was still, even now, thinking 3 moves ahead. You've been talking to Dante, he said. She said nothing. Whatever he told you. I didn't believe him because he told me, she said. I believed him because I spent 7 hours verifying what he showed me and it held up on every single point. That's how it works. You know that. You've watched me work for 6 months. Something moved behind his eyes. Something she couldn't fully read. She stood up. She left the coffee she hadn't touched. This is going to run, she said. All of it. That's not a threat. It's just where this goes. She walked out of the coffee shop at 10:47. The recorder in her coat pocket had run for 44 minutes. She was half a block away, her breath fogging in the cold air, when her phone rang. She didn't recognize the number. She answered anyway. Ms. Voss. A man's voice. Level official. My name is Detective Souza, Financial Crimes Division. We've been trying to reach a Dante Hale. We have a record of contact between you and... What happened? She said. She had stopped walking. A woman with a stroller moved around her on the sidewalk. There's been an incident at a property connected to Aldrin Capital. A pause that contained something careful. We found a body, Ms. Voss. A witness has placed Dante Hale at the scene approximately 2 hours ago. The morning light was very cold. She felt it on the back of her neck the way you feel something you know is significant before you've had time to name why. Who was it? She said. Who's dead? Gregor Fenn, said Detective Souza, CEO of Aldrin Capital. She stood on that sidewalk for what felt like a long time but was probably 4 seconds. A cab went past. The stroller woman had already turned the corner. Then she called Dante. He answered immediately. She could hear him moving, footsteps, air, the specific ambient sound of someone already outside. They're calling you, she said. Fenn is dead. A witness placed you there 2 hours ago. The silence was short. Shorter than she expected. I was never at that building, he said. Last 12 hours I have been in 4 locations. All of them provable. All of them with people. The witness called at 10:52, she said, because she had asked Souza for the tip line time and Souza, who was still calibrating what he was dealing with, had told her. 5 minutes after I walked out of that coffee shop. Neither of them said Marcus's name. They didn't have to. You need to go in, she said. Now. With your lawyer and your hard drive. Not later, not after we figure out the optimal moment. Now, today, because every hour you're not in front of investigators is an hour the narrative sets around you. If the file... The file is already with my editor, my lawyer, and you're about to give your copy directly to investigators. It cannot be suppressed. There are too many copies in too many places. She started walking again because standing still no longer felt like an option. Dante. Going in is the only thing that protects you. If you run, you are exactly who Marcus needs you to be. A long breath on the other end of the line. The witness, he said. Marcus had to have someone ready. Waiting for the signal. Yes. He's been planning this longer than this morning. Yes, she said. He has. Which means we already won because his plan required you to be alone and discredited and without documentation, and you're none of those things. She stopped at a corner. A light changed. She crossed. Go in. He went in. Dante Hale surrendered to investigators at 3 p.m. with his attorney and a portable hard drive. Mara walked into Detective Seuss's office at 1:15 p.m. and laid out everything she had, not as a journalist protecting a source but as a witness, with the recorder, with the email chain, with the name William Carver written on a piece of paper that she slid across the table and watched Sousa look at without moving for a very long time. "You have documentation on this?" he said. "My lawyer is going to deliver it to you through appropriate channels in the next 2 hours, she said. "Handled in a way that cannot be made to disappear." Marcus Hale was taken in for questioning at 2:15. He came in voluntarily with a lawyer, which told her he'd already understood that the architecture of the situation had changed and that the optimal move was now cooperation-adjacent behavior rather than flight. It was, she thought, exactly what she would have expected from him. Even collapsing, he was strategic about it. William Carver recused himself from the case at 4:30 p.m. without public comment, citing a conflict of interest. The phrasing was bureaucratic and bloodless and explained nothing. By that evening, 3 other attorneys in the district were on the phone with each other about what it meant. The story published at 7 p.m. Patricia's name beside hers on the byline because Patricia had spent the afternoon doing the work that doesn't show up in the story itself. On the phone with lawyers, pushing back on 3 paragraphs that needed tightening, holding the line on 2 claims that required one more source before they could print. The kind of editing that is its own form of reporting. By midnight the story had been picked up by 6 outlets. By morning it had been picked up by 22. 2 congressional offices issued statements before noon. A third issued a statement before dinner. She sat in her car outside her apartment building 4 days later and could not immediately make herself go inside. Not because she was frightened. The Escalade was gone, had been gone since the morning after the story broke, the man who drove it currently cooperating with investigators on a separate charge. She sat there because her body had finally understood that it was over, the particular sustained tension of the last 3 weeks, and that understanding had come out as exhaustion so complete she wasn't certain she could make it up 4 flights of stairs. She made it. She sat down on her bed, looked at the wall, thought about Marcus Hale, who had built a model plane with his brother when they were children, thought about the USB drive sliding across a coffee shop table, the precise choice of 4 words, the way a trap can be dressed up to look exactly like a door that opens outward when actually it only opens in. She thought about a thumb hovering over a screen. The Hale. For seconds. Patricia had told her at 6 a.m. during the first call before any of it had unraveled. That's not luck. That's 9 years of work. The mistake goes somewhere useful because you've built the instincts to make it useful. She wasn't sure she believed that. She was a journalist. She believed in documentation, verification, the specific kind of truth that holds up when someone takes it apart. A theory about instincts and useful mistakes was not that kind of truth. But she was holding on to it anyway. Because some things you hold on to not because they're verifiable but because you need them to be true, and because needing something to be true is not the same as pretending it is, and because the difference between those 2 things is, she had come to understand, one of the few distinctions that actually matters. She lay down on top of the blanket with her coat still on. She was asleep in under a minute.